When we talk about relationships, one of the things we often overlook is the way men quietly test women. These tests aren't always deliberate or manipulative. Often they come from a deep human instinct to understand trust, respect, and emotional safety. Men, like women, want to know if the person beside them can walk through uncertainty, conflict, and truth with strength and grace. The challenge is these tests are rarely announced. They are subtle, quiet, almost invisible, yet they can shift the entire direction of a relationship. So today, let's open our eyes to 4 of the most common subtle ways men test you, and why you must not fail them. The first way is through vulnerability. He may share something small at first, a story from his past, a mistake he made, or an insecurity he carries. He's not just telling you words. He's testing whether your response is safe. Do you judge, dismiss, or laugh it off? Or do you hold space for him, allowing him to be fully seen without shame? When you pass this test, you build a foundation of trust. When you fail it, he learns to hide, to guard, to protect himself from you. Vulnerability is a fragile seed. It either grows with care or dies in silence. The second test comes through boundaries. He will notice whether you respect his space, his time, and his needs. Just as importantly, he'll notice how you hold your own boundaries. Do you say yes to everything at the cost of yourself? Or do you know how to say no with clarity and kindness? Boundaries are not walls. They are doorways to respect. A man may subtly push against your limits, not to break you, but to see if you are strong enough to protect your own worth. When you demonstrate healthy boundaries, you invite him to rise in respect. When you fail, you invite imbalance, and he may lose admiration. The third test is authenticity. Men want to see who you really are, not the version of you that performs for approval. He may notice how you act when no one is watching, or how you shift your words depending on who is in the room. Authenticity cannot be faked, and it cannot be sustained through masks. He is watching to see if you are aligned, your words matching your actions, your values showing up in your choices. Authenticity is magnetic. It creates trust that runs deeper than attraction. To fail this test is to lose the one thing every relationship needs: truth. The fourth test is emotional presence. Men quietly observe how you handle conflict, stress, or disappointment. Do you shut down and withdraw? Do you explode in anger and blame? Or can you stay present, grounded and steady, even when emotions rise high? Emotional presence doesn't mean perfection. It means staying connected, even when it's hard. Men are not testing to see if you're flawless. They're testing to see if you can be real without losing your center. When you pass this test, you show resilience. And resilience is one of the most attractive qualities you can bring into any relationship. And underneath all these tests is one deeper truth: self-worth. A woman who knows her value does not crumble under subtle trials. She does not lose herself in the eyes of another. She understands that her worth is not up for debate. It is non-negotiable. Men sense this. They test not to diminish, but to see if you can stand steady in who you are. And when you can, everything changes. Respect deepens, love strengthens, connection flourishes. So when men test you in these subtle ways, remember, it is not about passing or failing in their eyes. It is about staying true in your own. When you honor vulnerability, protect your boundaries, live authentically, remain emotionally present, and root yourself in self-worth, you don't just pass their tests. You set the standard for love itself. When a man begins to form a bond with a woman, one of the first and most subtle ways he evaluates her is through the lens of vulnerability. Vulnerability is not simply about sharing secrets or revealing wounds from the past. It is about opening a window into one's heart, even if only slightly, and observing what comes back through that window. For men who are often conditioned to suppress emotions, to appear strong and untouchable, choosing to be vulnerable is an act of immense courage. When he shares something that matters to him, Whether it is a small embarrassment, a past failure, or even a hidden dream, he is not only disclosing information, but also testing the quality of emotional safety present between you. This is the test of whether his truth will be met with empathy or with judgment, with acceptance or with dismissal. And in that moment, everything about your response sets the tone for what kind of intimacy is possible between you. Many women misunderstand this test because they assume that vulnerability will appear as something obvious, dramatic, or deeply emotional. But often it begins in the smallest ways. He may share that he feels nervous before a meeting. He may admit he isn't sure how to fix something around the house. He may tell you about a time when he failed in school or when he was teased as a child. These may seem trivial on the surface, but beneath them is the quiet question: will you still respect me if you see that I am not perfect? This is a moment where respect and trust are hanging in the balance. If the response is to belittle, mock, or minimize, the man learns quickly that it is safer to retreat, to armor up, and to keep his real self hidden. If, instead, the response is open, supportive, and non-judgmental, he experiences the relief of knowing he can be fully seen and still be valued. This is the heart of passing the test of vulnerability. What makes this test subtle is that men rarely articulate it. They do not say, "I'm testing you right now to see if you can hold space for me." It is unconscious. It shows up as a hesitation before sharing something personal, as a careful watch of your reaction, as a silence after the disclosure while waiting to see how you handle it. In those pauses lies the truth. Men are deeply aware of how they are perceived, even if they don't say so out loud. They notice the raised eyebrow, the quick change of subject, the laughter at the wrong time. Equally, they notice the gentle nod, the attentive silence, the warmth of eye contact that signals, "I'm here. You are safe with me." These micro moments accumulate, and they become the silent evidence that either builds or breaks the foundation of trust. Passing this test does not mean you must agree with everything or shower him with exaggerated praise. It means you listen with presence. It means you respond with humanity rather than criticism. It means you allow him the dignity of his own story without rushing to fix it, judge it, or compete with it. Vulnerability cannot thrive in an environment of comparison or condescension. It only grows where there is acceptance, curiosity, and kindness. And this is not about indulging weakness. It is about recognizing that strength is born in the ability to share what is real. A man who feels seen in his vulnerability will paradoxically show up stronger, more confident, and more connected in the relationship. He will not feel the need to prove himself constantly, because he already knows that his imperfect self is enough. The danger of failing this test is profound. When a man feels that his vulnerability is unsafe with you, he will begin to hide. He will show you only the surface, only the parts of himself that appear competent and untouchable. He will armor himself in humor, in busyness, in distraction. He may withdraw emotionally, even if he remains physically present, and slowly a distance grows between you. You may wonder why he does not open up, why he seems emotionally unavailable, why he avoids deeper conversations. The truth is, he did try, perhaps in small, subtle ways at first, and the environment did not feel safe. When vulnerability is punished or dismissed, intimacy withers, trust erodes. The relationship may remain functional, but it loses its soul. To pass the test of vulnerability, a woman must also be willing to embrace her own. It is impossible to create an environment of safety if you yourself are armored and guarded. Men sense whether you are authentic in your responses or simply performing empathy. When you can acknowledge your own imperfections, when you can say, "I know how that feels," from a place of genuine experience rather than distant theory, you create a bridge. Vulnerability invites vulnerability. The courage to show yourself makes room for the courage in him to show himself. And when both people drop their masks, the relationship moves from surface level attraction to something deeply human and enduring. It is important to remember that vulnerability does not mean oversharing or drowning the relationship in constant emotional disclosure. It is about meaningful connection. A man does not need to tell you every detail of his past to test your ability to handle his truth. He only needs to see that when he does open up, however lightly, the response is one of dignity and respect. What passes the test is not grand gestures of support, but small consistent moments of presence. It is the steady assurance that he does not have to earn safety by being flawless. He is accepted as a human being with scars, fears, and uncertainties. When this test is passed, something transformative happens. A man begins to trust not only you but also himself in your presence. He trusts that he can be honest without losing respect. He trusts that his softer sides will not diminish his masculinity in your eyes. He trusts that you are strong enough to hold both his strength and his fragility. And this trust becomes the soil from which deep love grows. Attraction may spark at the beginning, but it is trust that sustains a relationship over time. Without trust, attraction fades. With trust, even ordinary days become extraordinary because both people know they are fully seen and fully valued. One of the most profound and yet quiet ways men test women is through authenticity. This test is subtle, often invisible, and it is not expressed in words or direct questions. It shows up in how a woman carries herself, how she responds when situations shift, and how her character aligns with her words. Authenticity at its core is about being true to who you are without bending into someone else's expectation or trying to perform a version of yourself that earns approval. Men are highly sensitive to this, even if they do not consciously analyze it. They are constantly watching whether the woman in front of them is grounded in her truth or shifting into a mask in order to be liked. Passing this test means you embody integrity and presence, and that creates an undeniable sense of respect and attraction. For many women, the pressure to perform or present a certain image is overwhelming. Society teaches women to be agreeable, to play roles, to mold themselves into what they think others want to see. A man may not call this out directly, but he notices. He notices when your laugh changes depending on who is in the room. He notices when you agree with everything he says, even when your eyes suggest otherwise. He notices when you claim values but betray them in your actions. These inconsistencies signal that you are not fully rooted in yourself, and that creates doubt in his mind. Men, especially those who seek depth and long-term connection, are not looking for perfection but for congruence. They want to know that your inner world matches your outer behavior, that your yes means yes and your no means no. This consistency is what allows them to trust you. Failing this test does not always happen in dramatic ways. It may be as small as pretending to enjoy a hobby you secretly dislike, simply because you think it will please him. It may be as subtle as dressing in ways that do not reflect your true style but mirror what you think he desires. It may be found in avoiding conflict at all costs, even when something deeply bothers you, because you do not want to lose his affection. On the surface, these acts look like compromise or effort, but beneath them lies a dangerous message. Who I really am is not enough. Over time, this erodes the foundation of respect. A man begins to sense that he is not connecting with the real you, but with a projection designed to keep him happy. And when that realization comes, attraction begins to fade, because authenticity is the root of genuine intimacy. Passing this test, on the other hand, is not about rebellion or defiance. It is about courage, the courage to let yourself be seen fully. When a man notices that you do not compromise your values for approval, he admires you. When he sees that you hold your ground on what matters to you, even when it is inconvenient, he respects you. When he observes that you are the same person in private as you are in public, his trust in you grows. This is not because he expects perfection, but because authenticity is rare and it signals strength. Men are naturally drawn to women who embody strength in this way because strength built on truth is magnetic. What makes authenticity such a powerful test is that it reveals whether a relationship is built on reality or illusion. If you are not authentic, a man may fall in love with a version of you that does not exist. That creates a fragile bond, one that eventually shatters when the mask slips and the real self emerges. But if you are authentic from the beginning, he falls in love with the truth of who you are, not a performance. That bond is far stronger because it does not rely on constant pretending. Passing this test creates freedom. You no longer feel the weight of having to live up to an image, and he no longer feels the uncertainty of not knowing who you really are. Instead, both of you meet in the space of honesty, and that honesty allows intimacy to deepen. Authenticity also shows up in how you handle mistakes and imperfections. A man will notice if you can admit when you are wrong, if you can apologize sincerely, and if you can show humility without collapsing into shame. Pretending to be flawless or trying to hide every imperfection is a form of inauthenticity that men instinctively detect. But when you can stand tall in your imperfections, acknowledging them without letting them define you, you demonstrate a rare form of confidence. This reassures him that you are not fragile or deceptive, but real and resilient. And resilience is one of the most compelling qualities in a relationship. The danger of failing the authenticity test is not only that he loses respect, but that you lose yourself. Living behind a mask is exhausting. Constantly adjusting your behavior to fit someone else's expectation creates distance between your true self and your presented self. That distance becomes a breeding ground for resentment, insecurity, and emotional fatigue. Eventually, the relationship feels empty, not because love is absent, but because truth is absent. When truth is missing, connection withers. Authenticity, therefore, is not just about earning his respect. It is about protecting your own wholeness. A man who is paying attention will test authenticity in subtle ways. He might ask about your beliefs and watch if your answers change depending on context. He may observe how you treat people who cannot give you anything in return, such as waiters, cashiers, or strangers. He may notice whether you live according to the values you speak about, or whether those values crumble when challenged. These observations may not be intentional, but they carry great weight. Men look for congruence because it tells them whether you are dependable, trustworthy, and genuinely grounded. Passing this test requires self-awareness. You must know who you are and be willing to stand in that truth, even if it costs approval. It requires the strength to let go of people who cannot accept the real you, and the courage to remain open in a world that often rewards performance over honesty. It requires the humility to admit imperfection while refusing to compromise your core values. Authenticity is not a fixed destination. It is a practice, a daily choice to show up as yourself rather than as a performance. When you live this way, you naturally pass the test because there is nothing to test. The real you is consistent, steady, and present. Ultimately, the authenticity test is about alignment. A man wants to know if the woman he is drawn to today will still be the woman he knows tomorrow. He wants to know if the values you claim are the values you live. He wants to know if your affection comes from genuine care or from a desire to be liked. And when he sees that you are authentic, that your actions, words, and essence are all aligned, his respect deepens, his trust grows, and his love becomes rooted in something unshakable. So when a man tests you through authenticity, recognize the opportunity. Do not hide, do not perform, and do not bend yourself into someone else's shape. Stand in your truth, even when it feels risky, because authenticity is the soil in which real love takes root. A relationship built on masks will always crumble, But a relationship built on truth becomes unbreakable. Passing this test does not mean you are perfect. It means you are real. And in the end, real is what every man seeking depth is truly looking for. When it comes to the subtle ways men test women, emotional presence is perhaps one of the most powerful and underestimated. Unlike vulnerability, which reveals how you respond to his openness, or boundaries, which test how you protect your worth, emotional presence is about how you show up when life gets difficult, when tension arises, or when conflict cannot be avoided. Men are acutely aware of how a woman responds in these moments, because those responses reveal whether she can be trusted as a partner in the unpredictable storms of life. Emotional presence is not about never feeling anger or sadness, nor is it about being endlessly cheerful. It is about staying grounded enough to remain connected, even in the face of discomfort, rather than collapsing into withdrawal or exploding into chaos. This test often comes in moments that do not look like tests at all. A man may forget something important or make a mistake. He may disagree with you over an issue that matters deeply to you. He may show up in a way that is disappointing, frustrating, or confusing. None of this is unusual. Every relationship encounters these moments, but what matters most is how you respond when emotions are heightened. Do you disengage completely and retreat into silence, leaving him in the cold? Do you lash out with blame, criticism, and cutting words designed to wound? Or do you remain present, expressing your feelings honestly while staying open enough to hear his side? That choice tells him more about the future of the relationship than anything you say on calmer days. Men test emotional presence because they want to know if you can hold steady when things get hard. A woman who disappears emotionally, shutting down or stonewalling, creates a deep sense of isolation. A woman who erupts with uncontrolled anger creates volatility that makes trust impossible. Neither extreme fosters intimacy, because both break the connection. But a woman who can stay in the conversation, even with tears in her eyes or frustration in her voice, sends a powerful signal: I am still here. I may not like what is happening, but I will not abandon this moment. That is emotional presence, and it is rare, which is why it is such a defining test. Passing this test does not mean suppressing your emotions or pretending to be calm when you are not. Emotional presence is not emotional numbness. On the contrary, it is about allowing yourself to feel deeply while remaining grounded in self-control. It is the balance of authenticity and steadiness. You are angry, but you do not let anger consume you. You are sad, but you do not drown in sadness and disappear. You are hurt, but you do not weaponize your pain to inflict harm. Emotional presence requires maturity, self-awareness, and a willingness to stay connected even when it is uncomfortable. Men are drawn to this quality because it reassures them that you can handle the inevitable turbulence of life without falling apart or creating destruction. Failing this test, however, can deeply damage a relationship. If every disagreement turns into an explosion, a man learns that conflict with you is unsafe. He may begin to hide his feelings, avoid bringing up issues, and withdraw emotionally to protect himself. Over time, this erodes trust and intimacy, because communication cannot survive in an environment of fear. On the other hand, if every conflict is met with silence, passive aggression, or withdrawal, a man learns that he cannot rely on you to engage when it matters most. This creates a different kind of isolation, one where he feels unseen and unheard in both cases. The absence of emotional presence tells him that you cannot be counted on in the heat of the moment. And if he concludes that you cannot be counted on in emotional storms, he will doubt whether you can be counted on in the larger storms of life. What men long for, though they may never express it in words, is a partner who can be both strong and tender at once. A woman who can be angry without being cruel, sad without being paralyzed, frustrated without abandoning love. This is emotional presence, and it is deeply reassuring. It tells a man that he is not alone, even when things are messy. It tells him that you can fight without breaking apart, disagree without destroying the bond, and feel pain without closing the door. In short, it tells him that your connection is stronger than the storm. That is a rare gift, and it is one of the most attractive qualities you can offer. Passing this test requires inner strength, but it also requires practice. Emotional presence is not something we are born knowing how to do. It is something we learn by paying attention to ourselves. It means noticing when we want to shut down and asking ourselves why. It means catching the impulse to lash out and choosing a different response. It means holding space for our own emotions without letting them spill out in destructive ways. This does not happen overnight, but every small step toward awareness makes a difference. When a man sees you take responsibility for your emotions rather than projecting them onto him, he admires you. When he sees you stay engaged instead of running away from discomfort, he trusts you. When he sees you fight fairly instead of cruelly, he respects you. These responses tell him that you have the maturity to build something lasting. The beauty of emotional presence is that it creates safety not only for him but for you as well. When you show up fully in moments of conflict, you are also showing up for yourself. You are honoring your emotions instead of denying them, but you are doing so in a way that preserves connection instead of destroying it. This balance creates trust in both directions. He trusts that you will not abandon him emotionally, and you trust that your feelings can be expressed and respected. The result is a relationship that can withstand far more than one built on avoidance or volatility. Men test this subtly, often without realizing it. They may say something provocative to see how you respond. They may share bad news and watch whether you spiral into panic or remain steady. They may push back against something you believe strongly in, to see if you can defend it without hostility. These are not cruel games but instinctive ways of asking, are you strong enough to hold your emotions without losing yourself, or me, in the process? If you can demonstrate emotional presence, the answer becomes clear. Ultimately, emotional presence is about love in its most grounded form. Love is not only about butterflies and laughter, it is also about weathering storms together. A man wants to know if you can be the person who stands by him when life is hard, not just when life is easy. He wants to know if you can stay present when fear, anger, or grief arise, both in him and in yourself. He wants to know if you can remain connected, even when connection feels difficult. That is the test. And when you pass it, you give him not only reassurance but also inspiration, because emotional presence is contagious. Your steadiness invites his steadiness. Your groundedness invites his. In this way, you elevate each other and build a relationship that can endure anything. So, when a man tests you in this way, do not see it as a trap. See it as an invitation to show the depth of your strength. Stay in the moment. Feel your feelings fully but handle them wisely. Refuse to collapse into silence or explode into destruction. Remain engaged even when it hurts. Because in those moments, you are not just passing his test. You are building a foundation for love that can weather every storm. A bond that grows stronger not in the absence of conflict, but through the presence you bring to it. Among the many subtle ways men test women, the most important one, the one that underlies all the others, is the test of self-worth. A man may test your vulnerability, your boundaries, your authenticity, and your emotional presence. But at the root of all these tests lies a single question. Do you know your own value? This is the silent measure men use, consciously or unconsciously, to determine whether a relationship has the potential to thrive or collapse. When a woman demonstrates that her self-worth is intact, that she is already whole and does not need a man to define her value, something powerful happens. Respect deepens, attraction strengthens, and love takes on a different quality. But when self-worth is weak, everything else unravels, because a woman who does not know her value cannot sustain the kind of relationship she desires. Self-worth is not arrogance, pride, or self-importance. It is the quiet recognition that your value does not depend on anyone else's opinion, validation, or approval. It is knowing, deep in your core, that you are enough exactly as you are. This kind of grounded self-worth is what men instinctively look for, because it signals strength, stability, and confidence. When a man sees that you know your worth, he realizes he cannot manipulate you, diminish you, or control you. He understands that you are not desperate for his attention or desperate to be chosen. Instead, he sees that being with you is a privilege, not a favor he is granting. That changes everything about the dynamic of the relationship. The test of self-worth often shows up in subtle ways. A man may cancel plans at the last minute to see how you respond. Do you accept disrespect silently because you fear losing him, or do you calmly assert that your time matters? He may withdraw affection temporarily to gauge whether you chase him endlessly or remain secure in yourself. He may offer a half-hearted commitment to see if you settle for crumbs instead of holding out for the love you deserve. Each of these situations is not always a calculated scheme. Often they are unconscious behaviors born from instinct. But to him, your responses reveal whether you truly know your worth. A woman who values herself does not beg, or bargain for love. She does not reduce herself to earn affection. She does not lose her identity in the hope of being accepted. She stands firmly in who she is, even if it means walking away from someone who cannot rise to meet her. The consequences of failing this test are profound. When a woman does not know her worth, she over-invests in people who undervalue her. She accepts less than she deserves, thinking that some love is better than none at all. She tolerates disrespect, neglect, or mistreatment because she is afraid that standing up for herself will scare him away. But in reality, this behavior does not keep a man. It drives him further from respect. A man may stay in such a relationship out of convenience, but he does not admire it. He does not look at a woman who has abandoned her self-worth and think, "This is the partner I want for life." On the contrary, he loses respect because he knows she has lost respect for herself. And once respect fades, love cannot survive. Passing the test of self-worth, however, transforms the relationship. When a woman radiates confidence in her value, she does not need to demand respect. It comes naturally. She does not need to prove herself, overextend herself, or sacrifice herself to be worthy of love. She knows she is already worthy, and that knowledge shapes everything she says and does. A man in the presence of such a woman instinctively rises higher. He knows that he cannot offer half measures because she will not accept them. He knows that he must bring his best self, not because she demands it with threats or ultimatums, but because her very presence inspires it. This is the power of self-worth. It elevates not only you, but also those around you. Self-worth is tested not only in how you treat yourself, but also in how you allow others to treat you. If you forgive every broken promise without accountability, you communicate that your standards are flexible. If you give unlimited chances without evidence of change, you communicate that your value is negotiable. If you chase love from someone who repeatedly shows disinterest, you communicate that your worth is dependent on their attention. Men pick up on this quickly. They recognize whether you are a woman who sets the standard or a woman who bends to whatever standard is given. And the truth is, men respect women who set the standard because it shows that their love is not taken for granted, but earned through integrity, consistency, and genuine commitment. What makes the test of self-worth so powerful is that it does not require words. You do not have to constantly declare your value, defend your dignity, or remind him of your standards. In fact, the more you have to talk about it, the less real it appears. True self-worth is expressed quietly through actions, energy, and choices. It is shown when you walk away from a situation that dishonors you. It is shown when you continue to pursue your own passions and purpose rather than shrinking your life to fit his. It is shown when you celebrate yourself, not in arrogance, but in gratitude for the person you have become. This kind of confidence is magnetic because it does not rely on performance or approval. It simply is.